Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, March 21st, 2019. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. We have got a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room. The phone lines are working again today, and we think we've got our audio problems taken care of. So we're sort of, back to battery, as it were. And so you can call on in with your opinions and questions and observations and comments. So let's get right on into it. Obviously, the big news is early today, Donald Trump tweeted out that the U.S. will recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Pardon me. And Trump said that the Golan is of critical strategic and security importance to the state of Israel and regional stability. Well, actually, this is going to make the region even more unstable. In fact, it could lead to war between Syria and Israel, because Syria, I don't think, is going to go along with this just because the U.S. says so. And what this is Trump helping Netanyahu win his re-election, as well as, thumbing his nose at Assad. But in the long run, any illusion that the United States is any kind of objective arbiter in the Middle East, that has vanished. It's just popped like a bubble. And we still have not had a response from Syria yet. And I'm sure Syria is very war-weary. But this could trigger a war between Israel and Syria, which would give the United States an excuse to go back into Syria and get that gosh darned Assad here. One other aspect of this, of course, is that recognizing Israel's annexation of the Golan, and it has nothing to do with strategic importance. It has to do with oil and gas. There's a lot of oil and gas down there, which Israel's already been, selling. So it was basically theft on a grand scale, and Donald Trump has just rubber stamped it. But this just completely demolishes the U.S. arguments on Crimea. Now, the U.S. keeps insisting that Russia annexed Crimea, which isn't actually what happened. But for the purposes of this statement, let's say that's what happened. In recognizing Israel's annexation of the Golan, the United States has forfeited any moral authority to sanction Russia over allegations of annexing Crimea. So our foreign policy is very disjointed. In fact, there is no coherent policy. It just caroms down the walls, careens down the walls, going from one intervention to the next intervention, to doing something nice to our friends, to doing bad things to the people that we hate. And it was a bad move. We knew it was coming when the State Department report came on out describing the Golan as Israel-controlled rather than Israel-occupied, the word occupied having legal ramifications. Okay, we're going to take a phone call now. Jim in Chicago, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Have you looked into this guy who is the acting Secretary of Defense? He worked for Boeing for 31 years, and currently he's trying to get a lot of more contracts for Boeing. In fact, denying Lockheed Martin some contracts and letting it go into Boeing. And I'm wondering, when they didn't ground the 737 right away, do you think this guy might have had some influence on that?
It may well be. I mean, I remember following that second crash where Donald Trump and the FAA came on out and said, no, the planes are perfectly okay. They're safe to fly and okay to buy. And of course, now they've got egg all over their face because it's turned out, yeah, there actually is a problem with the aircraft here.
Well, not only the aircraft, but the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, it does look like he's basically feeding contracts to his old buds over there at Boeing, which, Boeing is going to be in serious trouble. There are going to be major lawsuits and litigation about this, about how they handle this. And there's going to be a lot of criticism leveled at the FAA for basically allowing Boeing to do the verification and validation on the aircraft, which is what the FAA is supposed to do.
Right. And the final thing, this guy has not even been confirmed as Secretary of Defense. No,
he's just in there, and he may be thinking he's not going to be confirmed, so he's just in there, and he's just going to do as much for Boeing as he can, and then retire with a glorious pension and go back to Boeing with a nice consulting job that pays a huge salary.
Right. Okay, Michael, you take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open again, and obviously they are working. So anyway, Netanyahu is coming to Washington. He's coming to the United States for the AIPAC convention, and Trump is just rolling out the red carpet. Trump is going to host Netanyahu at the White House next week. This is a major shift in policy from President Obama, who basically snubbed Netanyahu. And this is going to be Netanyahu's third visit to the Trump White House. And we knew that Trump was a supporter of Israel, but he's just totally whatever Israel wants. Move the embassy to Jerusalem, recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan. That is not going to make the region more stable. That is going to destabilize everything here. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. The United Nations Human Rights Council voted on March 15th to conduct an investigation into the Israeli army's killing of peaceful Palestinian protesters along the eastern parts of Gaza. And the council voted 29 in favor and 2 against. 14 countries abstained. Australia and the U.S. were the 2 no votes. And today, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights will vote on the report of the UN investigation. And we'll see what's going to happen with that. Now, as we reported yesterday, Netanyahu was calling up everybody and saying, no, you can't vote for this thing. You just don't understand our problems. Those Palestinians, just because we stole their country, they're sending kites and balloons over our homes and just threatening us with all this stuff. But Israel is continuing to do what Israel is doing, and apparently Israel soldiers are now shooting students who are protesting the killing of Palestinians. So dozens of students in the occupied West Bank city of Ramallah clashed with Israeli forces as they protested the killing of 3 Palestinians. These were students from Birzeit University, and they protested north of Ramallah near an Israeli checkpoint against the army killing of 3 Palestinians the night before. Israeli forces fired tear gas and rubber-coated metal bullets at the students, injuring 3 while suffocating others. And Israel has now started conducting airstrikes against the protesters in central Gaza. And Israel used a military drone. They fired a missile at young Palestinian protesters in the central district of the Gaza Strip. Eyewitnesses said the drone fired a missile at the young men east of the Al Borej refugee camp and added that the missile detonated close to the protesters, but fortunately did not lead to casualties. Okay. There is concern that a Turkish intervention could trigger another Syrian war. And this has to do with Turkey and Iran teaming up to go after the Kurdish rebels, which would involve going into both Syria and Iraq. And Syria does not want Turkey to come into their country. And Syria's got their own problems with the Kurds, but at this point, Syria wants to basically get their borders back under their control and just kind of settle down, hopefully avoid another war. Although after what Trump did with the Golan, I think another war is in the offing here. Now, Trump came out earlier today and said that ISIS has been defeated. And of course, all the war profiteers are already out there saying, no, ISIS is still there. We still have to be spending money on Syria. We still have to be over there. And apparently there is a figure that one of the people saying it's too early to say mission accomplished is Muslim Kobani. He's the commander-in-chief of the Syrian Democratic Forces, and he's a 50-year-old Syrian Kurd whom coalition officials address as general. He's seen as one of the chief architects of the battle against the jihadis. But apparently, while U.S. diplomats are full of praise for Kobani, whose nom de guerre was Sahin Silo when he was a militant in the Kurdish Workers' Party. So this is a guy who changed sides. And so he's unlikely to be rewarded for his prowess on U.S. soil anytime soon. Apparently his real name is Ferhat Abdi Sahin, and he's on Turkey's list of the most wanted terrorists. It's very, very confusing trying to follow all of this. Okay, up in the Baltic Sea near Kaliningrad, the United States has carried out a major provocation against Russia. Apparently, the U.S. flew a B-52H Stratofortress at 8,000 meters, running a simulated nuclear attack on the Russian Baltic Fleet. And you're not going to see that reported in the corporate media. You won't see any of this stuff until Russia does something. Then the corporate media is going to say, oh, look what Russia done. They have initiated the conflict. No, the U.S. is provoking. They keep poking at Russia, hoping Putin's going to take the bait. But I think he's too smart for that. Down in Venezuela, there's an interesting article over at Zero Hedge saying that the U.S. attempted a coup by sheer narrative control. And they went this way because it's a low-risk, low-cost plan to simply control all the stories that everyone tells themselves about who's in charge in Venezuela. And they're just going to go on reporting Guido, 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 because unfortunately in our current age, especially the younger generation, they have been raised to be easily manipulated. That's what the schools have done to them. And manipulators, propagandists, are just out there pushing these stories, even though videos are coming out of Venezuela showing that conditions there are not as we're being told. Okay, let's take another phone call. G from Maryland. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. You're talking about Russia and how the U.S. is over there in their neck of the woods in the Baltics or wherever and doing stuff, and then they're over in Venezuela, the U.S., and they're just messing around with Russia's interests. Eventually, Russia's going to do something to this country. I mean, what would be the red line? I mean, the U.S. does to Russia for Russia to actually have an effect on us, the people in this country. And I'll just let you go, Mike. Thanks a lot. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. I don't know what Putin's red line would be. I imagine we're getting close to it because unfortunately Putin is dealing with a lot of pressure from his own hardliners saying, let's just get it over with. And I'm very disturbed by all this talk that Paul Craig Roberts says is floating around Washington, D.C. about an unprovoked nuclear first strike against Russia. And it's a scary time. And for those of us old enough to remember the original Cold War, corporate media and the government kept just fanning up the fear. Just keep the fear going. Keep us emotionally dependent on the government. Keep us under their control. And they're definitely doing it again. But in this case, again, we're dealing with very dangerous weapons, and there's that new added dimension of computerization. And we've already seen instances where the software in some of these modern weapon systems is not really very good, and it's led to ordnance being launched that shouldn't have been. So in terms of what can Russia do to the United States, I think what Russia is doing is pretty much what a lot of other countries around the world are doing. They're delinking from the United States. They're dropping the U.S. dollar, and they're playing a waiting game because I think they recognize the United States is an empire in decline, and it's thrashing out at the rest of the world trying to regain its empire. But it's not working. We didn't win in Syria. We're not winning in Afghanistan. Iraq wants us to leave now. We've had all these military ventures, and not all of them are working. Now they're talking about going into Venezuela. That could turn into a new Vietnam. And the American people are getting really sick and tired of bearing the costs of the war, of having their children come home killed or crippled in all these wars. And Americans are saying, why are we doing this? Okay, who cares if conditions in Venezuela are terrible? That's not our problem. That's the Venezuelans' problem. We have problems here in the United States of America that are being ignored by the U.S. government in its lust to go in and meddle in other countries. Are we going to get into a force-on-force war with China and Russia? Well, it certainly looks like the U.S. is preparing for it. The danger with that one, of course, is that once joined, it's going to be hard to back down. And the first side that feels they are losing will probably resort to their nuclear weapons. And I don't want to see that happen. But as we reported yesterday, Russia has sent its latest Boré-class submarine out for sea trials, and that one can really cause a lot of damage pretty much anywhere on the planet. All right, we have another caller waiting on the line. Joe in California. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. Mike, I have no real understanding of this AI. I mean, could you, in simple and concise as possible, give a definition of AI? And my second question is, these two planes, the Boeing MAX 737 crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia, was that an example of AI gone awry?
No, because there's no AI being used in those flight control systems. Now, AI, as you see it in the movies, are self-aware computer systems that can carry on conversations. But in actual practice, artificial intelligence refers to a class of software that is able to learn from its past experience and basically build up its database through a self-learning or a teaching process, rather than having to be programmed with all the knowledge it needs to do what it's doing. I think it's a little overhyped. As I've mentioned before, the Weather Channel uses IBM's Watson, and at least around here, the results aren't very good. And it raises the question, how do these computer scientists working with AI know that what the AI is learning is correct? There are no AI academies. There's no AI SAT scores. There
Right.
have been previous experiments with artificial intelligence where these systems will just go off in the most bizarre directions and start swearing at their programmers or just coming up with all kinds of bizarre stuff. To me, it's a very reckless deployment before we're really sure where we're going with this. And I'm sorry to see it being applied to facial recognition. Well, it's like it's the new whiz bang product. Everybody wants it, and it's just being, sold all over the place, including areas where it really shouldn't be necessary.
Well, how long does it take for an AI system to build up this knowledge?
Okay, well, I'm going to have to
requires?
Okay, Joe, I'm going to have to put you on hold. We got to take a break for commercials, and I'll come right back to you after these words from our sponsors.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did. The towers.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're talking with Joe in California, and Joe was asking about artificial intelligence and how long it takes to teach itself what it needs to know to do its job. And that, of course, varies greatly depending upon what the task is. Right now, they're trying to teach this AI system facial recognition simply by showing it the faces of everybody that they can. And that's going to take a long time. For simpler context problems, it takes less time. For others, like, again, trying to predict the weather, that self-learning process probably continues to go on even as the artificial intelligence system operates.
Oh, Mike, just two more last questions. First, on the AI, when we see a machine, a chess master, grand chess champion playing a machine, is that machine AI?
The latest ones are AI because they learn to play chess by playing chess rather than simply being programmed with everything that they need to know. That's a real good example of what makes an AI an AI.
Mike, I want to put some money in anonymous cash in an envelope and send it to Republic, but I'm going to do this. But I'm just wondering, do you think we're going to get to a point where because Republic Broadcasting, the people, the establishment, they know that's an independent outlet. Do you think we're going to get to a time where that mail will be basically, it just won't arrive? The U.S. Postal Service will just not deliver it?
Well,
they know there's cash in there? Call me cynical.
Well, it depends on how you wrap the cash here, because if you wrap it in like a couple of sheets of typing paper, they're not going to know what's in there. It is a felony to tamper with the mail, and that actually goes back to an infamous case where the Catholic Church was urging Catholics who worked at the post office to derail the mail for Protestant churches, both to and from. And it led to a huge stink and the passing of laws regarding tampering with the mail. Whether the government will start saying, yeah, we're going to stop mail going to Republic Broadcasting or whatreallyhappened.com, it could happen. At this point, as we slide into dictatorship, absolutely anything is possible.
That's what I mean. It's not a felony if the government does it. So,
well, it is a felony if the government does it, but the government won't prosecute itself.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you so much, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to James in South Carolina. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I was just thinking about something that I'd like you to consider. I was just listening yesterday, and you were talking about the flat Earth phenomenon on the internet and all like that. It would seem to me that it would be fun if you would take maybe once a month, take some of these things on, have some of these people on and discuss that and, some of the other stuff you disagree with. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff like the moon landing and all like that. You're one of the few people that has an eclectic enough background to take this kind of stuff on. I think it would be fun. Don't do it a lot, but, just do it sometime.
Well, it's not my idea of fun. In fact, it would be a waste of time because we've seen this in online discussions, whether it's chemtrails or climate change or whatever. There'll be shills that will come on in to try and junk up the conversation, and everybody just wastes a huge amount of time arguing with them, and then they'll go away, and then all of a sudden somebody new will come into the discussion and start the same arguments all over again. And after a while, it becomes obvious it's the same person, just with a new identity, and their goal is to basically waste everybody's time. This flat Earth nonsense, again, it's put on the internet to try and make us all look kooky in the hope that the American people will flock back to the warm embrace of the corporate media.
Well, like I say, I believe that you have the background to knock these things down, and I just thought it would. I think the people that listen to you would appreciate it if you didn't do it too often. It's just an idea there.
Well, I understand. I understand that, but I go through the same thing with the fake Apollo landings. People. I'm now like a quarter of a century into doing what I've been doing, and you'll present all the arguments and you'll show everything, and they just go away, and then they come on back and try and start the discussion all over again to just tie you up and keep you from looking at the more important things. You know, to me, it is a waste of time. And I think the propagandists kind of jumped the shark going with flat Earth because it was possible to convince people that chemtrails are bad. It's possible to they did convince people the Apollo landings were faked. And they certainly did convince a lot of people that humans were warming the planet. But trying to convince people that there are actually Americans who think the world is flat, that one, I think, really kind of made it very obvious what was going on. Anyway, James, got to let you go. Got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I got cut off yesterday, so if I could, I'd like to bring up two quick topics.
Yeah, we were having problems with the phone system, but they're fixed right now.
Yeah, no, I know. I was listening to you, and sometimes it would fade in and out, but it's much better today. So, but the first topic is they're going to have hearings, the House Judiciary, on white nationalism, and I think it's great. It's gonna be wonderful. The publicity. I'm sure you're gonna see Nadler and Sheila Jackson Lee and all these like lefties showing what hysterical lunatics they are. And you'll also see the Republicans as being cowards and also condemning any like person that might be, say the politically incorrect things. So as it just amazes me that the House thinks they're going to score political points by doing this. It's just as a white nationalist, it's a bonus bonanza for us, and I really appreciate them doing it. Once again, to have. I'm hoping Cortez will be there, and maybe Debbie Wasserman Schultz for good measure. It's just going to be wonderful to watch. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, I hear a lot of talk about Israel and the Zionism with the war starting.
Okay,
wars
well,
and
before
stuff.
we go there, I think right now the smartest thing that white nationalists could do is rebrand themselves. And, you have the African Americans and Hispanic Americans and the Asian Americans. I think it's time for American Americans to come forward. And
or European Americans.
I think you just missed my point. Instead of calling yourself a white nationalist, call yourself an American American. And that's going to be a lot harder for them to put a negative connotation on.
I guess that is a better idea. But the other thing I wanted to bring up was the real, we all talk about Zionism and Israelis starting wars but when you look behind the scenes of what's going on with the demonization of Russia and the attempted coup against Trump, it was the English. And it's the quiet, unspoken thing is how the English were involved in trying to subvert the Trump presidency, how the English are the ones that are always stirring up crap about Putin and trying to demonize Russians. And it goes back to like our Civil War. I mean, they don't want the American country to get along with the Russians because England, with their banking, empire, and they're real smart, slimy little bastards. And it's when you look at the intelligence services that run this country and run the world, basically, they're all like started by all these rich elite families and banking families in England, and then also farming out with the rich American banking families. And it's the intelligence services that really have taken over this country. They've taken over our media. They've taken over, you name it. And when you really get behind it, it's the Milner Group, it's the Rhodes family, the Cecils, it's the Rothschilds. It really goes back to Mother England, and the real enemy to the United States patriot and populist and nationalist is the British Empire, more so than the Israelis, in my view, or the Zionists.
A lot of what you say is absolutely true, but I wouldn't confine it just to Great Britain. We're seeing a lot of countries that are American allies that are bashing Russia. They're going along with the sanctions. They're going along with the warmongering. And I would say that what you're looking at is less Great Britain in and of itself, but more of a coalition, which includes Great Britain and the United States, France, and so forth. But you hit it right on the head when you say the issue is the major banking families are all around the globe who are using their money to basically manipulate whatever nations they happen to be residing in to basically create opportunities for further plunder. I mean, look at what George Soros is doing to Thailand right now.
Yeah, well, what he did, and they're trying to get. I had a condominium in Thailand. I'm in an apartment, and I got out of there about when the king died a couple of years ago. I said, I'm going to get out of here because you can see what's getting ready to happen. They all sat on their hands until the old king died, and now they got a new young king who's a bit of a playboy, and it's just ready to go. That whole country is, and the Chinese are in there, the British are in there. Everybody's got an interest in there, and the globalists want Thailand back. It's going to probably be pretty ugly what happens over there. And I just lucky to get out and sell my place. But I love Thailand. It's a great country, and they're good people. And it's hard. It's just a shame. You know, they were never conquered by anybody as a nation, and they're going to, you know, probably end up being conquered by globalist bankers, and that's a real shame. And I wish them well in their fight against globalism. And
I wish them well.
That's a big fight.
But, you know, they're pretty much, I think, the only country in that part of the world that has escaped Western domination, and that's what's coming up for them right now. Anyway, Joe, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go and switch to Art off the grid. Aloha, Art. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. You know, I get home. I had a doctor's appointment today. Just get home, walked in the door, boot up Yahoo News, and what's the first thing I see? Video shows 171 migrants crawling through a hole under the border fence in Yuma, Arizona.
Yes.
Now, talking 171 migrants here. And I'm watching the video, and the Border Patrol agent says for this 171 migrants is going to cost them $100. What was it? A little over $1 million, roughly at $100,000 per month. Now you figure $100,000 per month over a 12-month period. We're talking a total of, and I love numbers because numbers don't lie. We're talking about a total of $1,200,000 per year. Now, let's say they do this once a week. Okay, they'll multiply that number by 4 because the average month has four weeks in it, and we come to $4,800,000 per year. That's at once a week, every week for a year. And if we add to that, remember back not long ago they said to keep the military on the border would cost $5 million. So we round that $4,800,000 out to $5 million, and add to that the $5 million they say it would cost for the military on the border. We get $10 million. Now,
yeah, the numbers are always, you know, backwards. I mean, you know, Trump wanted $5 billion for his wall, and you know, the Democrats, Congress said, no, we can't afford it, and yet they're spending all the money to take care of these illegal immigrants. And nobody's really sure how many there are here, but it's already been estimated that just providing medical care for the illegal immigrants, especially for the birth of all those anchor babies, is costing way more than the wall ever would. But again, the Democrats are desperate to flood this country with Democratic voters. We got a story about that a little bit lower down. Apparently, business owners think this surplus of workers is going to keep wages and salaries down, but they're already as far down as they can go, and still allow Americans to just maintain the basic standards of living that they need. And maybe that's part of the globalist goal, is to force Americans to accept a still lower standard of living before they drop the borders around the rest of the world here. But that's been the message coming from the globalists and the bankers and the global warming people and all of it. You must make do with less so we can have more. You must make do with less so we can have more. And frankly, I'm tired of hearing it, and I'm pretty sure that you're probably tired of hearing it as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And now if you add to that, I believe I sent you a link to an article of Tommy Lauren, who she had a broadcast on the Blaze called Tommy, and she is being criticized because she came out and spoke out against this new proposal to lower the voting age to 16.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, she's using the whole the school system is nothing but an indoctrination program, and it's all this whole plan is this new voting age that they want to, you know, get it to 16 is because they want to make sure that they catch these voters when they're young and impressionable, and that's to give the Democrats more votes. This is, I mean, they are pulling dirty trick after dirty trick after dirty trick, trying to change all of the rules to their favor because they don't like the system. And plus, they're calling for an end to the Electoral College.
Yes.
I mean, if they get any one of these, we're done. Just any one of these three issues, if they get one of them, we're done.
Well, the only upside on all of this, of course, is that with all the socialism and spending that the Democrats are going to be doing, it will accelerate the collapse of this country. And then we'll be able to just sort of scrape all of that stuff out, basically, exile all the professional politicians and start over with the Constitution and the first 13 amendments.
Yep, and that's what I mean by we're done. I mean, if they get this through, it's only a matter of time before we will see an absolute collapse. And Mike, as much as I hate to say it, I have tried so hard to be positive through all of this, and it's become almost impossible for me to maintain a positive attitude.
Yes.
But I am at the point, I'm not kidding, I am at the point where I am almost praying for a collapse just so we can do what needs to be done. You know what I'm saying? And I really hate it, but I'm at that point.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, I'm hoping for an economic collapse so that we can avoid a nuclear world war. But it does seem that there's such poor quality thinking coming out of the federal government. And by the way, somebody sent me an article about our acting Secretary of Defense. He was with Boeing for 30 years. He's only been in government a year and a half. He's got zero military experience. What's this guy doing advising Donald Trump on how to go to war? I mean, that's how disjointed.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have somebody advising you militarily, you should at least have a general.
Yes.
Or a brigadier general. That's the lowest of all of them.
Yes.
Because the brigadier, it's the way we learned it was be my little general. There's four of them: brigadier, major, lieutenant, and then general. And at least a brigadier general. At least.
Yes.
Because at least there you got some experience. To bring in somebody with absolutely zero experience, never even served, that is absolutely, and I hate to use remember, we can't use the R word anymore, but I'm going to use it, retarded.
Yes. It absolutely is.
Anyway, thanks, Mike. Have a great one, man.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are now open again. And getting on back down to Venezuela, it looks like Maduro is taking off the kid gloves here because just a few days after Juan Guaido's government in waiting took over 3 diplomatic facilities in the United States with the blessing of Trump, Maduro's security forces have begun arresting members of Guaido's staff, including his chief of staff, Roberto Marrero, as well as opposition legislator Sergio Vergara. So the arrests are now starting, and at some point, I'm sure they're going to go after Maduro himself, who had to return to Venezuela to be seen as being present. And if you'll remember, when he arrived at the airport, he was met by ambassadors of all the countries who are supporting his presidency, and I use that term loosely, so that he couldn't be arrested without creating a diplomatic incident. But he can't stay surrounded by those diplomats all the time. But it looks like Maduro is getting ready to basically come down hard on this coup d'etat. And, of course, that would then leave the United States with the option of just basically invading, coming in from the Caribbean, coming across the border with Colombia, and it'll turn into a new Vietnam, and it will drag on for a decade and cost a huge amount of money and kill a lot of American kids. Up in Afghanistan, apparently their security forces have been harassing contractors and confiscating their equipment at military bases across the country, costing the United States hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, the confiscated property and equipment belonging to 2 international companies that were awarded maintenance and operations contracts from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is worth more than $780,000. So apparently Afghanistan is not really happy about the United States being there either. And of course, we're going to be coming up here on a big debate where Iraq is on the verge of literally passing a bill saying all foreign military must leave. The U.S. is arm twisting them to not pass that because that giant embassy they built in Baghdad is actually a command center to basically rule the Middle East. One embassy to rule them all, as it were. Okay, so as I said earlier in the show, Trump was out there saying that ISIS has been defeated. He pulled out a bunch of maps showing, where ISIS had been and where they are now. And, of course, those who want the war to continue are saying, no, there's still pockets of ISIS. Lots of work to do here. All right. Down in Saudi Arabia, we're getting more reports that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been stripped of many of his powers, and apparently he has not attended a series of high-profile ministerial and diplomatic meetings in Saudi Arabia over the last 2 weeks. And apparently this came right down from his father, King Salman. And apparently some of the authority that he lost was overseeing the kingdom financial and investment decision making, which is now being done by Musaid al-Ibn, who was appointed by King Salman. So King Salman apparently is getting his feet back in the stirrups, and he's not happy with how Mohammed was doing things, especially the embarrassment over Khashoggi. I think we might see Mohammed bin Salman just gently eased out of the palace. And King Salman might go back and redeclare the older brother as the crown prince. So we'll see what happens there. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back after these few words.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slows circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid 150s over the 80s to the mid 130s over mid 80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is basically on a tour of the Middle East. He's trying to basically rally all of our erstwhile allies to create a united front against Iran. Ooh, we've all got to hate Iran. We're going to go after Iran here. And this is about as transparent as going after Venezuela. Iran hasn't done anything. But apparently Pompeo kicked off his tour in Kuwait, where he met Emir Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Sabah. And then he's going to be going to Israel and Lebanon. I'm sure Israel will be fully on board with going after Iran. I don't know about Lebanon. We'll see what happens there. Over in France, the government is trying to find ways to crack down on the yellow vests. And the last few weeks, we have seen what appear to be agent provocateurs committing acts of vandalism and violence, which has led Macron to be able to say, well, we're just going to shut it all down here if the violence continues. And this coming weekend, Macron is deploying the military to help maintain security in order to free up the police forces to focus on maintaining public order. But it looks like this is building towards a confrontation as well. Remember a while back I said this push to create a global government could trigger a global revolution. When you look at all the countries right now where people are protesting and indeed rioting, there's a global discontent, there's a global awakening of all the people. They're realizing the true condition of their lives, the true nature of their governments. They're not happy about it. All right, so let's talk about New Zealand, because they have instituted an immediate ban on all assault rifles, military-style semi-automatic rifles. And the ban goes into effect immediately, will be followed by legislation. And they're demanding New Zealand citizens should make arrangements to turn in weapons banned under the new laws. In other words, those people of New Zealand who have already purchased these weapons, own these weapons, have committed no crimes with these weapons, are going to be stripped of them. Bernie Sanders thinks that's great. And he just endorsed the move right away and said it needs to happen here in the United States. You know, he wants to strip Americans of their Second Amendment rights overnight. To heck with the Bill of Rights. We've got to get those guns here. Now, remember earlier in the week, there were all these stories about how New Zealanders were already turning in their guns. And I speculated at that time it might be propaganda to try and get New Zealanders to start turning in their guns. Well, as it turns out, as of Tuesday night, only 37 firearms had been turned in nationwide out of 1.2 million registered guns. We got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat, very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're talking about events down in New Zealand, and it has now come on out that the gun licensing procedures were not followed for this guy who shot up the mosques. And apparently this ex-cop and arms control officer, Joe Green, says that he's got a source alleging that gun licensing procedures weren't properly followed. Apparently, the information claims that the alleged gunman's application wasn't lodged in Dunedin, where he lived, but filed in Waikato. Apparently, he wasn't interviewed in his home, and all of his references came from online chat room acquaintances. Well, there's your problem with all these gun laws. They're not going to work if they're not actually being implemented properly. Now, of course, New Zealand's government, for that matter, Australia, is reacting to this tragedy by trying to push all kinds of agendas. They're blocking Zero Hedge and other websites, and New Zealand is now demanding big tech censorship to increase, to, quote, protect consumers, end quote. I think what they want to protect the consumers from is the truth and the facts about what's going on, because this is already starting to stink to high heaven. You know, that's the wonderful thing about the internet. If there's something there that might offend you, you don't have to look at it. You don't have to read it. It's not like you're strapped into a chair with your eyes propped open a la Clockwork Orange and made to watch bad things. Now, the Brighteon.com video platform came under extreme threat from internet infrastructure providers. They were forced to delete all New Zealand shooting videos under threat by the globalist controllers of the net. And the latest call now, they want to ban all chat boards other than those being run by the corporate media. Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. They don't want anybody else to have a chat room anywhere, so that everything can be filtered. Now, here's a question that everybody's wondering. If all of these social media platforms have these automated systems to block objectionable content, just how is it that Facebook allowed this video to run its full length and then remain online long enough to get downloaded by however many people downloaded it? And so apparently earlier today, Facebook's Vice President of Integrity, gee, I didn't even know they had one, Guy Rosen, explained why the company failed to immediately remove that live stream. So, something funny about that here. Now, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand has announced that New Zealand will broadcast the Muslim call to prayer across the nation on TV and radio tomorrow. And that same day, New Zealand women are being encouraged to wear the Islamic head covering in sympathy with Muslims in the wake of the shooting. And it's an interesting symbolism. But we're already seeing the repercussions of this. Over in Great Britain, apparently there were some attacks on mosques, 5 sites attacked. Worshippers are now afraid to bring their children to prayers. It was a lot of damage, broken windows, and it was a late night rampage. And apparently in revenge for the Christchurch massacre, which in turn was revenge for Muslims' killing of Christians, which in turn was revenge for tap dancing barefoot on shag carpeting. I really don't know, but we seem to be in this cycle escalating of revenge. And apparently over in the city of Orléans in France, the Church of Saint-Pierre du Matroi was set alight, deliberate arson, and spray painted with Allahu Akbar. Now, the fire was quickly extinguished and did not burn the church's support structure, so they will be able to put it back together. Is this a real attack? Very well could be. I know a lot of people might say it's a false flag to make the Muslims look bad. I don't know. I think we're getting into this escalating spiral of revenge strikes back and forth. And remember what Gandhi said. If you extract an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, eventually the entire world is blind and toothless. And please let us not go down that path. Cooler heads have to prevail. Okay, now then. China has deployed the troops of the People's Liberation Army for the security of coal mines in Sindh-Thar region. This is located in the Tharparkar district of Pakistan, and it's just 90 kilometers away from the India-Pakistan border. So apparently China is stepping on in, even though things between India and Pakistan appeared to be quieting down. China has stepped on in. That coal, of course, is important to China's economy, and I can understand why they would want to secure that. Okay, we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Here's a story you're never going to see on the American corporate media. It's coming out of Al Jazeera. And it's basically talking about the fact that North and South Korea are now actively allowing families who were separated by the Korean War to reunite. And it's been a very, very long time. Remember, the Korean War started in 1950. I wasn't even alive yet when that began. So that's a little bit of good news. And it's another indicator that somewhere in the back room, Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un are talking reunification. And it would be the smartest thing that they could do, because it would pull the rug out from U.S. adventurism in North Korea. So I'm hoping that Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in can come to some kind of an agreement and say, we're reunified. No more North Korea, no more South Korea, just Korea. And they have been making all kinds of gestures along that line for quite some time. Combined Olympic teams, opening up these roads and train lines, letting families reunite, pulling back the artillery from the DMZ. Now they're talking about starting to actually tear up all those landmines and basically get rid of that DMZ. Down in Brazil, the former president Michel Temer has been arrested for corruption. Temer took office in 2016 after the impeachment of his predecessor Dilma Rousseff, also for corruption. So you can see what's going on. Back in 1997, the U.S. Space Command, which Trump has now reestablished as part of the Air Force, announced its commitment to full spectrum dominance. And the idea would be that the United States would dominate not just the air, space, the land, but also the electronic spectrum. And again, it sounds to me like a revival of Star Wars. But apparently Trump's new Space Directive 4, along with the production of laser-armed fighter jets, these are possible precursors to space weapons and the possibility of nuclear warheads being put into orbit. Now, there is a treaty saying that space cannot be weaponized, but we have seen lately how the United States just keeps pulling out of one treaty after the next, after the next, after the next. I don't know about you. I am not at all happy with the idea of orbiting nuclear weapons because of the possibility of a mistake, because of the possibility of their coming down someplace where they shouldn't, because of the possibility of a launch mishap spreading radioactivity all over the place. I'm opposed to the idea of war in space anyway, because it would basically turn near-Earth orbital space into a shrapnel field. Down here on Earth, when a warplane gets shot down, it goes down. All the parts settled onto the ground. That's it. That's the end of it. In orbit, it's different. Yes, some of the bits of a destroyed satellite will go down and re-enter the atmosphere. Some will go into higher elliptical orbits, but basically most of it will just go into other orbits, and they're going to be pieces that are too small to track. And if they intersect other satellites in crossing orbits, the closing velocity will be in the thousands of miles per hour. And that can cause a lot of damage. And so what I'm foreseeing is you destroy one satellite, its shrapnel destroys 3 more satellites, that shrapnel destroys 9 more satellites, and so forth and so on, until you have this domino effect that literally ruins all of the commerce going on in space, as well as making it impossible for any more space flight. The human race would have to wait for all that debris to finally re-enter before we could go back out into space. Now, this little tit for tat going on between Donald Trump and the ghost of John McCain is still getting a lot of news coverage, more than I think it really deserves. And again, it was prompted by the confirmation that McCain was part of this whole Christopher Steele dossier, getting it to the media, getting it to the Department of Justice, getting it to the FBI. McCain basically used his reputation to basically try and convince everybody this was the real deal, even though we now know that Christopher Steele basically used unverified sources, and let's be honest, he just kind of made this whole thing up to get the money he was getting from the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC as laundered through Fusion GPS. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, went on out basically attacking Trump for his jabs at McCain, saying it's a shame the president lets himself get down to that kind of level. And then Schwarzenegger mocks the president's portly physique. Yes, Trump is a little overweight, which means Arnold Schwarzenegger just let himself down to that kind of level. For those of you who appreciate the irony. Story coming on out from the Political Insider, and let me preface this by saying I don't know why McCain just doesn't come out and declare for 2020. All the indications are that he's getting ready to do it. But according to this article out of the Political Insider, Biden may choose Stacey Abrams as his 2020 running mate so people doesn't think he's another old white guy. And it basically says that, yes, Joe Biden is considering launching a 2020 campaign with failed Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams as his running mate. And Biden's top advisors have been in discussions to add Abrams to the top of the ticket in an attempt to show Americans the former vice president isn't just another old white guy. Now, as I understand it, he's already leading in the polls, even though he hasn't officially declared. And by the way, have you noticed this odd little thing that's going on with the corporate media? Because all the male candidates are being asked if they will choose female running mates, but the female candidates are not being asked if they will choose male running mates. Kind of a little double standard. Now, as for Stacey Abrams herself, story from the Daily Wire, apparently all this time afterwards, Stacey Abrams still won't concede the lost election, which has now been over for 4 months. And according to this article, it almost seems like she's waiting to carry out some kind of revenge. She made a comment, revenge can be very cathartic. And right there, I'm going to tell you, I don't want that kind of a personality as a vice president. Now, everybody is getting ready for the, at any time, supposedly release of the final report from the Robert Mueller investigation into Trump-Russia collusion. And all indications are it's going to basically be an airball. There's going to be nothing there. And that's after 3 years and millions of tax dollars. Trump and his people are out there saying, make the whole thing fully public. The Democrats are saying, no, only release redacted portions. And the reason for that is so they can say, well, if you could see the redacted portions, that would tell you there was collusion. But it turns out another collusion plot has surfaced, this one from Ukraine. And apparently there is an investigation going on in Ukraine that was prompted by a Ukrainian parliamentarian's release of a tape recording purporting to quote a top law enforcement official as saying his agency leaked the Paul Manafort financial records to help Hillary Clinton's campaign. Over at Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton is, I guess, starting to feel the frustration. He's out there saying the deep state is still protecting Hillary Clinton and trying to help overthrow President Trump. And basically, Tom Fitton said yesterday, Obama's former speechwriter turned Iran echo chamber Ben Rhodes is nowhere to be found and appears to be defying a court order to answer questions under oath about the Benghazi scandal. Has anybody checked Fort Marcy Park? So it's time to put Ben Rhodes' face on a milk carton, I guess. Former head of the CIA, John Brennan, tweeted out that Special Counsel Robert Mueller will soon put Trump's political and financial future in jeopardy. And apparently this was in response to Trump's tweet directed toward Kellyanne Conway's husband, George Conway, who is still out there even today saying it's clear the president's mental state is deteriorating. We have to we have to 25th Amendment him right now. And what is coming on out here is that George Conway, and there's apparently a strain on their marriage, he's very jealous of his wife's success. And he's very angry that Trump didn't give him a job at the White House that he wanted. So aren't they behaving like children? Isn't this the kind of behavior you expect from teenagers, not supposedly mature leaders of our country? Over at the Department of Justice, Attorney General Bill Barr has decided to keep Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein in the Department of Justice a little longer. That's all they're saying. Now, Rosenstein was supposed to step down from his position right about now, but apparently after discussions with Bill Barr, it was decided he would stay on a little longer. No specifics were given. So Rod Rosenstein gets to investigate himself as well as the FISA warrants, and I'm sorry to say it, but it looks like Bill Barr is yet another in a long line of corrupt deep state attorney generals who will not get anything done. Remember that story earlier in the week about how Bill Barr was concerned about rebuilding America's trust in the Department of Justice? I know how to do that, Bill. Start handing down indictments. Start convening grand juries. Go after that Clinton Foundation. Go after the email scandal. Hillary was not given her day in court. Double jeopardy does not apply. You can still charge her under Title 18. And you should. And if you were a real attorney general, you would. Boy, it is amazing. I remember when I was a kid, I briefly thought, wouldn't it be nice to be in politics? No. Knowing what I know now, absolutely not. I much preferred NASA and the movies. The girls were cuter there. We'll be right back.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And once again, we're putting out our plea. As you all saw and heard yesterday, we're right on the ragged edge of keeping RBN operating. and we need your help to replace equipment that's worn out. And it's just that simple. If you don't step in and continue to help us, we're not going to be here. And then you're going to have to go back and watch corporate media and get lied to and get impoverished and have your children sent off to war. So the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. And of course, whatreallyhappened.com. It's been a very tight month for us as well, and we could use a little assistance. And thanks to everybody who has donated. We wouldn't be here without you, is really what it comes down to. All right, we got a bunch of callers on the phone, so let's start with Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I just heard what you were talking about the U.S. attorney there, Barr, and let's be honest about it. The person to blame for all this stuff is Trump. People think he's playing 4D chess. He's not playing anything.
No.
There's no QAnon. There's nothing like that, okay? This man's a moron. At the very least, he's a moron. At the worst, he's completely corrupt. Or he might be a combination of both. I don't know. On top of that, now I see that he wants to turn the Golden Heights over officially to Israel. This would be actual help steal a country's land. I mean, I can't support a guy like this. I'm sorry, Mike. It really hurts because I don't know what else to do, because right now, every one of the Democrats, even Tulsi Gabbard, wants to take my guns away, or our guns away. They want to take, away the Second Amendment. They want to continue to, they come up with this silly climate change garbage and stuff. But at the same time, Trump is a neocon's neocon. I mean, war. He goes to, he has this bum Kushner who's tied into this genie oil, which is part of why they want the Golden Heights so bad. And he's literally run by Zionists, the worst type of Zionists. Okay, this is why we can't get out of the Middle East. He's even admitted. He says we're there basically now to protect Israel. Why? We don't take the Constitution of the United States does not say anything about protecting Israel or any other country for that matter, other than the United States of America.
And this goes all the way back to George Washington's farewell address, where he said, "Beware foreign entanglements." Now, by the way, just to be technically correct, all Trump is saying is the U.S. will recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan. Trump does not actually have any kind of authority under international law to say we're going to break this chunk of Syria off and give it to Israel. And I imagine that there's probably going to be a lot of condemnation from other nations around the world on this move, just as there were for the shifting of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And it could trigger a war between Syria and Israel. But I think what's going on is Trump wanted to be president so he could say he was the president. We're hearing that he doesn't read the reports that are coming into him, that he allows his staff to simply summarize them verbally, which means that staff now has a lot of control over what the president thinks he knows about what's going on in the world. He's basically isolated. And I know he's out there on Twitter, but I do wish he'd fire up that web browser and go on out and take a look at what's going on. But we're also hearing that he takes a lot of executive time, which is White House speak for he's not working. So at this point, he just seems to be coasting through.
Well, he's not coasting through very well. I don't trust the economy either. Like you, I think there's a lot more to it other than the stock market getting richer and richer, and that's because they're buying each other's stocks back. That's all it's just doing. Or the Fed buying a lot of these stocks back. It's it's not that they're really these corporations are doing that well. There's another thing too. He's refusing to take action against these tech companies, refusing to go and to break them up. Use the What are you kidding? Anti-monopoly laws against them, antitrust laws. He's not doing anything. The guy's a zero. Okay,
He's an incredible disappointment, and I'm in agreement with you. I know there are people out there who supported Trump and voted for him, and they don't want to admit that they were wrong, and they're basically going to go on defending him and making up these fairy tales about 4D chess, about how Trump is going to spring a big surprise on everybody. But as far as I'm concerned, Trump is a one-term president, and I think the Democrats are going to sweep both houses of Congress and the White House in 2020. Yeah. Unfortunately. Anyway, listen, Mark, I got to let you go. Got to take another break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective, and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go right back to the phones to Terry in California. Aloha, Terry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I can't disagree with Mark from North Carolina just now. And if we want our country to survive, we got to do this. We got to break off relations with Israel, recall our ambassador, stop all aid, and put on sanctions on the country. Now go ahead and laugh.
I'm not going to laugh. I don't think it can be done. Our government's totally owned by Israel. But we're going to have to let the whole system come crashing down and then be prepared to build it back up. We're basically, exile all the current politicians and say you're not allowed back in public service. Maybe send them off to an island in the South Seas somewhere. And just start up again with the Constitution and the first 13 amendments and just go from there.
What do you...
No private central banks. Strict campaign donation limits, and just, try and construct a system the way the founding fathers did that would try and limit corrupting influences on government. And the corrupting influences will always be there. Even Thomas Jefferson didn't expect that this daring experiment in self-government that he created was going to last all that long. In fact, his original estimate was 100 years tops, and there would have to be a revolution again.
You really think those people are going to give up that easy and just say, okay, do it yourself and relinquish their control?
Well, it all depends on, exactly what happens. I mean, if there's mass rioting in the streets of America, they may flee just out of concern, for their own safety. We could see a military coup in this country. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, anything right now is possible. And all of it looks really bad.
Yeah, and it kind of, I get the impression when you talk like this that we're going to get a Putin coming along on a white horse and we're going to rebuild the country and everything's going to be okay after that.
No, I'm not waiting for a Putin on a white horse. I'm just looking at the trends, and the trends are all heading in a certain direction. And how we're going to rebuild the country, we still have to work that out. I'd like to see us go back to the governmental structure that we had when the nation was founded, where the states had the authority and the central federal government was deliberately limited. And basically, instead of what we have now, which came into being after the Civil War.
Yeah, I'd like to see it too. Mike, yesterday you talked about Biden was leading in the polls.
Yeah.
And, when you said that, the whole thing smells like those phony poll results we had during the last presidential election. He's not even declared yet, and he's already leading in the polls. That smells to me.
Well, it could very well be. It strikes me as being a little too early in the cycle for the polls to be rigged. I think it's more a case of figuring out who the shakeout is going to be. And I know how creepy Joe Biden is, but looking at some of those other contenders out there, I can understand why people might look at him and say, this guy seems at least the best qualified to actually do the job. My concern is Hillary going to step on in? And the last time I saw Hillary included on one of these polls, she was down at the very bottom.
I see Biden and Pence, if he gets in, as turning the whole thing over to neocons, just like Bush did. I mean, the same thing, and the country's going to be gone. And I think, the chances of this happening are not very good. But if we could get a third party, any third party, get the right people and, somehow get all kinds of money for advertisement in the country, because I know that everything's rigged against a third party.
Yes.
That now's the time to do it.
Well, it might be a good idea. I might even revive my presidential campaign like I had back in 2016. But
I'd vote for you, Mike.
Well, thank you very much. And that's one. That's one vote right there. I wish I had an answer. I really do. It's hard to figure out what's going on when you know that the sources of information that you have to rely on, even with all your careful analysis and double checking, that you're still being lied to on a massive, massive scale. And you're absolutely right. They could be pushing Biden, and he may be delaying his intention to run while the other currently declared candidates absorb all the media flack and vitriol.
Well, don't forget what Ross Perot did, even though there was nothing behind him, was to spend all that money on all those half-hour commercials. And, he had a foothold in, and that's before these Republicans and Democrats are as bad as they are today. And I don't, I think it's worth a try, but I don't have the money to support it, obviously.
Yeah, that's going to be the really big issue. And part of the problem, the way the system is rigged against third parties, is the two traditional parties, Republican and Democrat, their candidates are automatically put on all 50 state ballots, plus the territories, all the ballots all across the country. They're automatically there. A third party candidate has to run petition drives in every single state and possession to get on that ballot, and that uses up a lot of volunteer time. It uses up a lot of money, and it's part of the way the system is rigged. Plus, if you remember, the corporate media, they go after third parties, and they're going to demonize them. It really is this big club, as George Carlin used to say, and we're not in it.
Right. Hey, let me tell you, last night I was watching the news, and they had these Syrian fighters beating ISIS, and they said that this is the group the U.S. supports, but they didn't say the name of the group. So I'm confused on, who are we supporting? Who did we support before that we're not supporting now? And I know whoever we're supporting is going to fight the Syrian army against Assad. Do you have it all straightened out with all these groups?
Well, part of the problem is some of them keep changing their names. Some of their leaders keep flipping on the sides, and it's a bit of a mess. But my understanding is it's the Syrian Democratic Forces who have been taking on ISIS. And now Trump, of course, is out there trying to take credit. We did it. We did ISIS. Ignoring, of course, the fact that ISIS at one point was a U.S. asset, and the U.S. asset just turned the U.S. just turned their back on them and let them go down, as it has done to so many other groups that it has found useful now, but not useful down the road.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, Mike, thanks. We'll listen to you on the radio here.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot here, and we're going to switch over to Charles in St. Petersburg. Aloha, Charles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike. I don't know what to get to first, but one of your callers brought up the subject of Genie Oil. Of course, Lord Rothschild is on the board and Rupert Murdoch, and that connects him with Jared Kushner. It's very interesting. They're pumping oil under Israeli occupation of the Golan Heights.
Yes, they are.
Syria's oil. Another subject you should bring up is the how much offshore money there is. Going offshore goes hand in hand with deindustrialization. Like what is happening in England. I mean, the ruling class there is involved in half the offshore, like Grand Caymans, the Channel Islands, Ireland itself, or offshore tax havens. All kinds of, I don't know why I can't, you probably are better at enumerating what are all the tax. It's been estimated there's a $54 trillion offshore.
I would not be surprised at all. I would not be surprised at all. And it's a symptom of the sickness of money addiction, because I think for most normal people, we'd all like to be comfortable, okay? We don't need to have big mansions. We don't need to have multiple mansions. We don't need to have a fleet of supercars. The problem with the money junkies is no matter how much they have to have more, and they will do anything to get more, and that includes engaging in these offshore tax havens. And the Democrats right now in the United States are talking about, a wealth tax of like 70% percent on the ultra rich, that's just going to drive them into those tax havens even more, unless we can find a way to basically shut them down. I mean, the tax havens.
Right. Another thing is, I've read on the internet, I don't know whether you believe it or not, that New Zealand is one of the areas that the elite are moving to in the southern hemisphere. You know, that there's a fear of that they foresee a atomic war and are moving to places like Argentina and the southern hemisphere to get away from the radioactivity. You know, that's just that the final false flag will be World War III.
Well, World War III will not be a false flag. It's going to be, live and in color. And I've heard, I know the Bush family bought a huge amount of property down in South America for their little getaway area. Australia's wide open. They got a lot of room there for people to move into. New Zealand, I don't know. I mean, at the time when I considered working for WETA, I would have lived there, but they get some killer earthquakes. And I had enough of those when I lived in California.
Yeah, it's part of this Pacific Rim. Okay, well, that's about all I can think of now. I just thought I'd bring up a few subjects, but Janie Oil should be looked into closer. How, of course, there's no independent news media, really. The majority of people just keep on listening to Rupert Murdoch. Murdoch's two children are turning out to be total, stabbing the real good people that run Fox News, stabbing in the back.
Okay, our phone connection seems to be going away. You need to understand that Fox News is going through All right, Fox News is going through a transition. They've been bought by Disney, which has formed a new company that now technically owns Fox News Channel. Rupert Murdoch himself had stepped down from running Fox News a while back, turned it over to his sons, who basically dragged the news channel to the left. And it's unknown whether they're going to continue to be there after this Disney acquisition. But if Disney is now in charge of Fox News, I think that guarantees it will continue to drift off to the left here. All right, let's go to Michael in New York. Aloha, Michael. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Just wanted to follow up on the previous conversation, but anybody thinking there's a safe place to hide when it all hits the fan on that inevitable day, they're only fooling themselves. What's coming is way bigger than man-made activity. But as far as when it does go down, Michael, like you were saying, and we get an opportunity eventually when the dust settles to rebuild and reclaim our country and restore the Constitutional Republic version 2, we have to understand when it all goes down, and it is Mad Max scenario, as some would say.
Yes.
All of us Americans have to understand every traitor politician, it's open season on them. They got us in that mess. There's no giving them a skate away or nothing. No. If I get my way, I will not only terminate them, but I'll chop their heads off and stick them on poles. So when the new Capitol is restored, I will have those heads on poles stating traitors and greedy SOBs, and this is what happens to every one of them that tries to do what they did to us before. That has to be the outcome for them. They are nothing but traitors. But as also on that revision and restoring the original Constitution, you're spot on. That's the most perfect document of a form of a government that's ever been created on this planet.
Yes.
If it was only implemented in full originality. For example, the politicians didn't make money. They're all multimillionaires now. Nobody questions, like, how come you guys are all multimillionaires? $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, whatever. So who's paying you, and what are they paying you for? And obviously it leads to treason. And so that's one of the key components to government of the people, by the people. The representatives do not get paid. They want to make money, they got to hightail it back home to the business, or in no original days, their family farms or whatever merchant type of business they had to make money. They conducted the business quickly for the government and got back to business so they could
You're exactly
live their
right.
lives with
You're
their
exactly
family,
right.
etc.
When this country was first created, being a member of Congress or the president was a temporary honor, especially for members of Congress.
Right.
And there was never supposed to be a permanent ruling class of multi-generational politicians like we had with the Bush dynasty, or for that matter, the Kennedy dynasty, and now the Clinton dynasty.
And all the congressmen and senator dynasties of just getting reelected for 30 years, they're they're in office. It's outrageous. But it's okay if they were real patriots conducting the true laws of our constitutional republic and not becoming multi-millionaires in the process from that service. If they're doing it on their own because they're entrepreneurs, they got a great business, a great invention, great. That's American all the way. But to get filthy rich as a congressman and a senator, how does that happen? Who's paying you? What are they paying you for? And that end result is investigation will lead to high treason every single time. Selling out the American people to some kind of lobbyist to get their way, which undermines the security and the well-being in this country and its people.
Well, there's that. And there's another way that members of Congress get rich, and that is they have their investment portfolios. They obviously have access to upcoming legislation, and they use it to decide where they're going to do their stock buys or their investments. It's insider trading. It should be illegal and prosecuted. There was even an effort to pass a law specifically saying Congress may not use information from the legislative sessions for their investments, but of course it got voted down. Anyway, listen, Michael, got to let you go. Got to take another break for commercials.
Michael.
We'll be back with another phone call after these few words.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Jim in New York. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mark. Yeah, I'm referring to the conversation we just had a couple of calls with you also, and I agree that we should return to the. Well, first let me talk about we should return to this idea of a citizen congressman who returns to his whatever he was doing before. But I want to say something regarding, you have to call it referred to heads on a pike of people in government. I had an idea that was similar to that, but not so violent, and it might be a warning. I had a hashtag a number of years ago called 1,000 Gallows on the D.C. Mall. And this is not to actually do that. It is to make, we have in New York here in some of our public parks temporary art shows with structures and sculptures that are there temporarily. My idea is to at least to suggest an art show on the D.C. Mall of, let's say, 100 gallows, and not for use, but and to have, let's say, 100 and 2 from every state, and no names on them, and to set them up temporarily as 100 gallows on the D.C. Mall. Now, the idea I have now is to call up the congressional switchboard and to propose this art show to our congressmen and to actually contact the D.C. police for permission. Of course, it will never be granted, but to at least make the show of planning it and to actually try to rent a warehouse where these gallows will be constructed. And there will be 2 gallows from every state. This is, again, strictly a temporary art show. And I think this could give a very good message. Even the idea of planning that could give a good message. And
well,
the second thing I had is just,
in case you were wondering why they're trying to confiscate all of our guns, between you and the other caller with the heads on the pikes, that's it right there.
Yeah. Okay. And now just to end on a humorous note, the idea of senators and congressmen returning after their term of office. Now, we have this phrase that comes up occasionally with an old member of Congress who retired or died or is presently in office. They call him the longest serving member of Congress. When we return to the days we had before where they go home after they're serving the term, the phrase the longest serving member of Congress will simply mean that he has a very happy wife. Have a nice day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. The idea of term limits has been floated, but of course everybody in Congress hates that idea because it's a very cushy job. There's a lot of perks that go with it. And yeah, on their salaries of whatever it is, it varies depending upon your seniority, but roughly $100,000 a year. You can become a multimillionaire very quickly. And that obviously tells you that something is going wrong there. And part of the problem is we have become a 2-tiered society. And those above that line, if you will, can commit crimes, get away with things like insider trading. Nothing happens to them. I mean, look at the Clinton Foundation. Clearly, there's problems there. Nothing happens. For the rest of us, though, you'd better do as you're told. We got to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Getting on back to domestic politics here. Up in Washington State, the Senate recently passed a bill that would remove President Trump's name from the 2020 presidential ballot if he does not release his tax returns. The legislation would also require all future presidential candidates to make 5 years of tax returns public before running in a primary or general election. And a lot of people are saying this seems like an act of desperation. Republicans are saying this really is getting into dangerous territory, that we're on risky ground when we try and place conditions on the federal elections at that state level. And Washington isn't the only state considering such a proposal. Both Illinois and New Jersey are attempting to pass similar bills. Well, to Washington State and Illinois and New Jersey, I have one thing to say to you. Rachel Maddow, remember that epic snafu when she got a leaked copy of 1 year of the president's tax returns and there was nothing there? It was just an ordinary tax return. So this whole thing could blow up in Washington's face. And again, it's like everybody's trying to shred the political system as it exists. They're trying to bend the rules to give themselves an advantage. Now, Hawaii's Tulsi Gabbard visited San Francisco last weekend and basically gave a speech in which she challenges this idea of U.S. exceptionalism. And that's really what makes Tulsi Gabbard distinctive, is her approach to U.S. foreign policy. And you need to understand, she's a veteran. She's served in a combat zone. And while all the other candidates are trying to avoid the subject of foreign policy because war has become very unpopular, Tulsi Gabbard is saying the issue is central to all other issues. She says we need to change the policy of regime change wars and new Cold War with Russia and China. She advocates cooperation instead of conflict. I think probably the vast majority of us do. We don't want wars. Ordinary people don't want wars. We want peace through commerce. We want trade. We want to be able to visit these other countries as tourists, not as invaders. But we're in the grip of a bunch of, I think, certifiably insane neocons with delusions of grandeur that they're going to conquer the world and make the rest of the world like us, which I wouldn't be too hasty on that, looking at the condition of the United States right now. Yes, we're going to force the rest of the world to let men use the women's room. Now, Beto O'Rourke basically denied that donations from supporters of Israel had influenced his approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and he turned around and denounced Netanyahu in stark terms, saying that Israel's leader had openly sided with racists. It was probably a reference to that basic law. So it looks like, and I emphasize, it looks like Beto's taking the gloves off. We'll wait and see what happens. Now, O'Rourke explained that, in fact, he'd taken no money from political action committees in that race, although J Street, which is a pro-Israel lobbying group that aids candidates who favor a two-state solution, helped solicit $170,000 in individual donations to his campaign. But if he's really ticked off Netanyahu, his chances of the White House just evaporated here. Over in Florida, Andrew Gillum has announced a plan yesterday to register and turn out 1 million new and what they describe as low propensity Florida voters to crush President Donald Trump's re-election chances in the nation's largest swing state. And they've got 3 million people eligible to vote. They've got 1.4 million getting ready to vote, former felons who are going to have their voting rights restored under a constitutional amendment approved by voters last year. And I'm wondering, where in all of this do all the illegal immigrants fit in? Because most of the people of Florida are already registered to vote. So where is he going to get these million from? But anyway, the Florida Democratic Party said it will spend $2 million in the next year to register 200,000 voters ahead of the 2020 presidential primary. And again, absolutely no guarantee that they won't register illegal immigrants to vote. Democrats want the illegal immigrants to vote. It's their path to success. Former President Jimmy Carter, as of today, has become our oldest living former president. He's 94 years old and 172 days. And he just passed George Herbert Walker Bush, who was 94 years and 171 days when he died last November. So good luck, Jimmy. He's probably the only former president I would cross the street to meet and shake his hands. It's the only one. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Story coming out of Lou Rockwell. Can the president legally break the law? And this is now relevant in the context that the open borders people are screaming that President Trump's emergency declaration to build the wall on the southern border is illegal and he can't do it. Actually, I'm not sure what law they're referring to. As far as I can tell, the president has that authority. But the debate is continuing, and it starts, of course, with Richard Nixon, who was famous for saying when the president does it, that means it is not illegal. But presidents have done things in the past that for anybody else would be a crime. During the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln ordered troops to arrest without warrant and incarcerate without due process many peaceful, law-abiding journalists and newspaper editors, and even a member of Congress in the northern states. Sounds like kidnapping to me. During World War I, Woodrow Wilson ordered federal agents to arrest people who sang German beer hall songs or read aloud from the Declaration of Independence in public. Now, that certainly was infringing upon freedom of speech. And we're already seeing places where if you try and read from the Declaration of Independence, oh my goodness, how dare you? During the Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt ordered banks to confiscate gold from Americans who had purchased it and possessed it lawfully. That sounds a lot like stealing. And then, of course, getting on back to the 1970s, Nixon used the CIA to spy on Americans and to frustrate the FBI's efforts to investigate the burglary at the Democratic National Committee's Watergate headquarters. And then he denied doing any of this. So you've got invasion of privacy, accessory to burglary, obstruction of justice, and using a federal office for deception. Years after his resignation, Nixon told David Frost in a live interview that no matter what the president does, it is lawful. Where did he get that argument from? So there are a lot of people out there now saying that Trump's emergency declaration is grounds for impeachment. But actually, the Constitution itself limits impeachment. There's a high bar. The president has to commit treason. He has to be caught accepting bribes or other high crimes and misdemeanors, of which building a wall on our southern border does not qualify. Okay, we're going to take a phone call now from Jim in New York. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Jim in New York,
hi,
are you
Mike.
there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I think President Carter might have been the last president who was not a war criminal, technically.
Well, he was
when you think about
basically
it.
an outsider, and he got steamrolled over by that whole the October surprise and the sabotage of that rescue mission, and that was all orchestrated by CIA to get Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush into the White House.
Yes, and when you think of Reagan, he was kind of the first neocon president. He had neocons. Didn't Elliot Abrams
Yes.
work with under Reagan? But I was going to call about this terrible New Zealand shooting.
Yes.
Well, we don't know exactly what happened, but let's pretend that it happened, as they say. It's interesting that, if you kill Muslims in a Western country, it's a horrific event. But if you kill 500,000 Muslims in a Muslim country, it's either ignored or it's okay.
It's a
As
great
Madeleine
military
Albright
victory.
said. Yeah, Madeleine Albright said, was it worth it? 500,000 Iraqi children dead. So it's just, I find that interesting. I also find it interesting if you wear a hijab in a Western country, it's encouraged. If you wear a hijab in Iran, or if you take your hijab off in Iran, that's encouraged. So it's like, the sociopaths who run the media, it's like they encourage women to take off their hijab in Iran as defiance against the evil Iranian government.
Yes.
Yes. And I find that very interesting. And another thought I had, they said, blame the right-wing internet people for the shooting in New Zealand. No. Blame the mainstream media. Remember, after 9/11, Fox News especially, the things they said about Muslims, you can't even imagine. People have short memories of what the, quote, mainstream media was saying about Muslims. Not the internet conservatives. It's the mainstream media that fostered all this anti-Muslim hatred.
Yes, they did, and they weren't the only ones. We had that story earlier in the week about, how Israel was funding this organization that was cranking out all this anti-Muslim propaganda all over the internet and the corporate media as well. And so they have to share the blame for what happened in Christchurch if it happened as we were told it happened.
Yes. Well, but I doubt it even happened the way there's all these anomalies coming out already. But pretending
Well, you need to be
it did
careful
happen,
about that. You need to be careful about, first of all, New Zealand has just come on hard. They want that video gone. And the obvious conclusion is there is something in there that they don't want anybody to see. And if you look at just how draconian They are about this. I mean, including talking about shutting down any chat rooms that are not going through the controlled corporate social media companies. It's clearly there's something there that people shouldn't be seeing. To me, this reeks of being a staged event. That being said, I think real people did die this time, because after Sandy Hook and the question about whether anybody really died, I think the people who are setting up these staged incidents, they're willing to go ahead and let people get killed because they serve a higher purpose. We're going to get the guns and we're going to shut down, independent media, and those are all noble goals here, and it's worth a few lives.
Oh yes, the CIA would have no compunction about killing real people. I mean, after all, they've been doing it in the Middle East for 25 years. It seems. Did you ever see that Star Trek episode where there was this entity that was getting the Klingons and the Federation fighting?
Yes.
To get, power?
Yes.
I think that's what's going on. They're getting Muslims and Christians who've got along fairly well up till 9/11, and they're getting them to fight each other, and they're laughing their butts off, and they're making hundreds of billions of dollars doing it as the Muslims and Christians are fighting each other.
Well, we
That
certainly
sort of
know who
reminds
would
me of
benefit from that, and we talked about that earlier in the week. And the problem is, as I said earlier in the show, we seem to be getting into this escalating spiral of vengeance attacks. There was the attacks on the mosques in Britain. There was setting that quite beautiful church in France on fire. And if this keeps on going, it's going to reach a point where we're going to see Christians and Muslims at each other. And because the Muslims are already blended in to the Christian populations in Europe and the United States, it's going to be impossible to get it under control.
Yes, and meanwhile, the Zionists and the neocons, they're laughing their butts off, and they're making a ton of money on it. And, and I've noticed that in the mainstream media, there's two groups you're allowed to demonize. One, of course, is white Christians.
Yes.
The other, specifically Arab Muslims. Why?
Yes.
Well, they're Israel's neighbors. That's why.
Yes.
So it seems that's the case. And, I just hope that alt-right people, they don't fall for it. Don't fall for this, Muslims and Sharia law. Like, that's a big threat in the United States. What are they, 1% of the population? And of that 1%, 10% believe in Sharia law? It's a red herring. Don't fall for it. Look, again, the Star Trek episode, they're getting us to fight each other. And, like the Klingons and the Federation, get them to fight. We'll make a ton of money off it. And I get annoyed with a lot of the, quote, alt-right people falling for this Muslim hysteria.
Yeah.
It's just gotta smarten up.
It's definitely being manipulated, and again, if there is in fact a plan to try and trigger a holy war between Muslims and Christians, it's going to be very, very messy indeed. And that's, again, we know who would benefit from that.
Yeah, and I tell people, don't fall for it. These Alex Jones and Breitbarts, they're trying to encourage that kind of conflict.
Alex Jones is trying to encourage this stuff? That's very alarming. I mean, I'm not surprised Breitbart is.
Say that, but he's always going on about Sharia law and Breitbart and Muslim crimes. He's always going on about that. I think he's fallen into that trap. But we're getting, again, like the Star Trek episode.
Yeah,
People
I
are
remember
silent.
the episode. I especially remember the scene where all their modern phaser weapons disappear and they're left with swords and they're sword fighting each other in the corridors of the Enterprise. I don't remember the name of the episode, but I remember the episode itself.
Oh, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks a lot, Mike. Have a great show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open again here. Interesting little story from Journal Neo. The science behind snowflakes and the danger of over-socialization. And it starts out observing how the millennial generation of Americans is often mocked for perceived emotional weakness and insecurity, the Play-Doh and everything. And what critics of liberal safe space culture often do not notice is that in addition to being less emotionally stable, younger Americans are also much more effectively manipulated and psychologically controlled. Think about that. We'll be right back after these commercials.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations. A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, and a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
They're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? I've always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy, but I must admit lately I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the seven seas, yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Chris in Clearwater. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, you and the last caller mentioned the exact same episode. The call screener just said it was called the Day of the Dove. So there
Yes,
was
that was it. Yes, the Day of the Dove.
Yeah, so, both the Klingons and the Federation had their high-tech weapons replaced by the low-tech swords, and then they felt obligated to go into hand-to-hand combat with them. It's kind of an analogy for what's happened to us, that we've been crippled, so we feel that there's always an immediate threat. We shouldn't have to deal with these caveman-type instincts, but, of course, we have to if we're going to keep a roof over our head, many of us, and that's why the technology of currency and credit has been so rigged, and it's astonishing that more folks don't see it. So, as I know I've mentioned to you before, but for the new listeners, that we need to go back to local solutions, things like community currencies, which I think is the most dynamic, the most difficult to coordinate. So they're the least common, but then there are time banks, and each of these have their own drawbacks and attributes and advantages, which I won't get into. But they're time banks, cooperatives, swap shops, barter networks. If these things are publicly accountable, not privately owned, where the owner would get a cut of every transaction and report to the IRS. So you want to have them where they're publicly accountable, not privately owned. So there are these things where we can keep the wealth local and be able to form more high quality, even heirloom quality goods and services, and not worry about when we buy something, is it going to break, and the wealth would be shipped overseas and by a big box store to produce more cheap slave wage made goods. And so that's a key thing to reestablishing the technology of currency and credit, to keep it local, and also the fact that folks are so toxic, physically overburdened with toxins, that it's difficult to get them to see that is what's making you angry. Like Chinese medicine calls a congested liver, congested gallbladder, angry liver, and angry gallbladder, respectively. Yes. So it's really tough unless you are involved in detoxifying physically, healing yourself personally, to get somebody to see, well, this is really what's causing you to act irrationally, thoughtlessly, and the pharmaceutical meds that cause people to take risks, or all sorts of things that we need to deal with on a more household to household, neighborhood to neighborhood level.
Well, if there is a major collapse in this country, which, again, that's where I think we're headed, all those things you described are going to become necessary at the community level. They're not going to be privately owned. People will just, I think, come together. They're going to put down their iPhones, their smartphones rather, and just say, we need to work together to get through these hard times which are coming. And the idea of community currency isn't that outrageous. There are communities today that have what they call local trade dollars. Here in Hawaii, we have the Maui dollar and the Oahu dollar, and their face value is $1, and they're used in commerce, and nobody complains about it. But it's a way of trying to keep the economy localized. During the Civil War and again during the Depressions, a lot of communities resorted to community currencies, especially during the Civil War. The North was counterfeiting the Confederate currency in an attempt to destroy it. And it became so unreliable that a lot of cities, just started printing their own local currency. And it worked very well because they ran it on the original model of the American Constitution. They didn't have a private central bank that was creating and then loaning it out. It was created by the local civilian government, spent into circulation to buy what the government needed, flowed through commerce without accruing interest, and then was taxed back at the end. And that system works really well for the country, the community, and its people. But of course, the private central bankers absolutely hate it. because they don't think anybody should use any currency that isn't borrowed at interest from them, even though it's just a piece of paper with colored ink all over it or a number in a computer. And it is a con game, and they've been getting away with it for about 300 years now.
Yeah, and during the last Great Depression, there were over 3,000 community currencies. I prefer them because they're the most dynamic and they're tangible. I feel like if you don't own it, as in the case of a cryptocurrency, which I do not endorse, or in the case of time banks, which I somewhat endorse and promote, if you don't own it, if it's not in your possession, you don't own it, is my belief.
That's absolutely true.
But when it comes to community currencies, they are mostly, almost all of them are denominated in time. So they are interchangeable with other community currencies. There's a video where Adam Kokesh he goes to Ithaca, New York, where you find the Ithaca Hour, founded in 1991. That's the most modern example of a community currency.
Chris, I hate to cut you off. I hate to cut you off. We got to take another commercial break, but you made some very, very good points. Thank you for the call. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Don't regret growing old. It's a privilege denied to many. Heart disease is taking our youth from us. Young people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are dying needlessly. One of the hardest messages I've ever had to deliver is to convince people that something natural like Extendivite should be taken as a preventative measure. I'm sure you heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Extendivite is that ounce. Take Extendivite for 1 year and see what your doctor has to say and how much better you feel. Herbs take time to address the problem. It took years of life to have a problem. Give Extendivite 1 year to fix the problem. Don't wait until it's too late. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or visit us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to do some economic news here. I'm way behind in my talking points. Most of this is probably going to roll over into tomorrow's program. And by the way, the lovely Lady Claire, as always, will be joining us in hour number 3. So over in the Eastern Mediterranean, there's the beginnings of a new rivalry between Israel and Egypt. And it has to do with energy. And it follows the discovery of this giant gas field off the coast of Israel. And that was back in 2009. Exxon and Qatar Gas have discovered another giant gas field off the coast of Cyprus, and Italy's Eni found more energy deposits off the coast of Egypt. So there's a lot of oil and gas down there. And they're starting to put together infrastructure projects to harvest and distribute that. And so there's a little bit of a rivalry already cranking up between Israel and Egypt over who's going to be the energy hub for that part of the world. Okay, we're going to take another phone call. Anthony in Tucson. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello. I've heard you make a comment about Lincoln arresting the congressman and putting him in jail for not going along with his program. And Mr. Bush should do this to every member of Congress because they're actually all in treason to the United States when they allowed the private Federal Reserve bank system to be established. When my grandfather worked with the Federal Reserve Bank system, they were supposed to put 2 vaults in every bank, and they were to deposit 50% in gold in the Treasury's vault, or the section of their vault was to be given to the Treasury of the United States, so they would be able to print 2 Federal Reserve notes for every $1 in gold that they put in there. The Constitution says that no states make anything but gold or silver coin. Therefore, they were dealing strictly back then in gold and silver coin. And the bill, the silver or gold certificate, was not the money; it was a receipt to get the money.
Yes.
So then they went and allowed them to print 4 to 1 for every dollar that they put in there. Then it was 16 and then 32, and before you know it, they stopped putting the money because that money was to be in the Federal Reserve Bank vault, so that half of the people would come and want to redeem them back to lawful money, because the legal tender notes were only legal as long as they were redeemable. So then the next fraud that was pulled on the American people is when they taught the women to vote against their husband to cancel their ballot. The third one then was starting the First World War. That was done by 3 men, went to England, and they talked to them to get us into the First World War with the Germans if they would give them Palestine. They call it the Balfour Declaration.
Yes, we've talked about that many times. Anthony, is there somewhere you're heading with all of this? Is there a point you're trying to make?
Well, the point of it is you and everyone that talk shows know there's a problem here, but you and I all have the right to declare every member of Congress, the Senate, the 9 Supreme Court justices are in treason, and they all should be removed from office. We are the people that own the country. These people are sucking our life blood off, and they're in treason against the United States when they allowed the 18-year-olds to vote against the mother and father to cancel their ballot. They gave the women the right to vote to cancel husband's ballot, and only the machine only voted one way. And that's why they were able to continue to take over this country. And then I was to a meeting at a Holiday Hotel in Cleveland, where they were discussing about how they were going to control every movement by taxing your heartbeat, by taxing the food. So you don't only have don't have the right to free speech because you pay tax on the energy to talk. The same people who formed the Federal Reserve Bank system then created the money, worthless money, and bought up the Hollywood, NBC, CBS, ABC, the radio broadcast companies, the internet. It's all bought with no money. It's all bought with credit created out of nothing. And every building that they build, if you are in with the group that is allowed to get them to write off a receipt for you to get a million or $1 billion, then if you agree to pay them the interest on this worthless, no backed gold or silver money, you can have them build a 20 or 30 story building, and then when they rent that, they earn the income off of the tenants, and the bankers earn the interest off of the loan.
Okay.
One.
Anthony, I understand what you're saying, and we have talked about this on numerous occasions about the devolution from the original money of the United States, which was silver and gold coin, and the paper notes were just claim checks. And over time, the private central bankers have debased our currency and our economy. And it didn't start with the Federal Reserve. The first bank of the United States was out there producing what were then called bank notes, which were just the equivalent of ink and paper. And they weren't backed with anything, or they weren't backed with anywhere near what the face value was worth. And that was why the Congress refused to renew the charter for the first bank of the United States, which in turn led to the War of 1812. Anyway, Anthony, we're running out of time, and I'm coming to the end of the show. So I appreciate your call, and thank you for the call. We're going to let you go here and get on back here to the news because I'm way behind on my talking points. There's no way I'm going to be able to finish this in the time remaining. Story coming on out of oilprice.com on how the U.S. oil weapon could change geopolitics forever. And it's basically commenting on how U.S. oil production hit a staggering 12.1 million barrels per day in February. And they're expecting it to basically stay at that mark in the midterm, then increase in the coming years. The U.S. is the new global oil production leader, followed by Russia, followed by Saudi Arabia. And while Saudi Arabia is still the world's largest oil exporter, which gives Riyadh considerable leverage, its decades-long rule of market swing producers is now being replaced by a coalition, reducing Riyadh's power both geopolitically and its global oil markets. In short, what Saudi Arabia could once do on its own, it now has to do with partners to offset the U.S. influence. Over in Iran, they are vowing to control prices and boost oil production despite the U.S. sanctions. Meanwhile, the United States is now on the hunt for the Iranian ghost tankers. And oil data provider TankerTrackers.com first reported last year that Iranian tankers were turning off their transponders to hide the destination of their journeys. And most tanker tracking data came precisely from transponders and port authorities, which made most Iranian tanker movement reports unreliable. This in turn contributed to the October-December oil price drop when it emerged that Iran was shipping more crude oil abroad than previously believed. So now the United States is targeting vessels transporting Iranian crude oil in violation of sanctions. That could be construed as an act of war. Or let's put it another way, piracy on the high seas. And it doesn't matter what language is being used. I mean, from the point of view of the ship being attacked, the difference between a pirate and a privateer is just a piece of paper. Now, Ukraine has introduced new sanctions against Russia, particularly against companies and individuals involved in construction and other activities in Crimea. So apparently Poroshenko signed this decree on Wednesday, and it targeted those involved in building that bridge from Russia to Crimea and anybody involved in that November incident in the Black Sea, in which Russia seized Ukrainian Navy vessels and their crews, who had sailed into the Kerch Strait without getting Russia's permission. China's new Silk Road, speaking of Crimea, and probably they're going to use that bridge for it, China's new Silk Road is going to extend to Russia's Crimea. And Russian state sources and officials have confirmed closer cooperation between Beijing and the Crimean Peninsula on major Belt and Road Initiative projects, citing Chinese diplomats. This represents a continued significant shift in Moscow's priorities, which have historically pit Russia in economic competition with China. Well, that is now fading away. And again, it is a result of this ham-fisted U.S. policy of trying to basically arm twist the world into doing what the U.S. government wants to do with tariffs and sanctions. And what it's really doing is it's driving other countries away from us. It's driving countries away from the dollar. It is counterproductive. It is doomed to fail. Now, President Donald Trump announced that the tariffs against China will stay until he's convinced Beijing is complying with any trade deal that they're about to make. And this apparently is refuting expectations that the two nations will agree to roll back duties as part of a lasting truce to their trade war. And Trump came out and said, we're not talking about removing them. We're talking about leaving them for a substantial period of time, because we have to make sure that if we do the deal with China, that China lives by the deal. So what Trump is basically doing, he's once again playing this game of you give us what we want, and then afterwards maybe we'll do something nice for you. And he's playing that with China. This is the exact same approach that wrecked the talks with North Korea. China is not going to go for this. And by the way, those tariffs with China are expected to shave off $1 trillion with a T from America's gross domestic product. This is coming from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And they're saying it will drastically affect the American economy. And it's going to lose $1 trillion off of its baseline potential within 10 years of tariff implementation. So we're losing. One area where it's already being felt, apparently because of the tariffs, American whiskey exports slumped in the second half of 2018 because of the higher duties by the country's trading partners who were following President Donald Trump's tariffs on steels and aluminum imports. Canada, China, Mexico, and the European Union slapped import duties ranging from 10% to 25% on U.S. whiskey and bourbon last year. I was wondering why Jack Daniels had upped their advertising budget recently. And that has resulted in an 11% drop in U.S. whiskey exports. Okay. More bad news for Venezuela. Apparently, Citigroup was holding several tons of gold placed as collateral by Venezuela's central bank against a $1.6 billion loan. The deadline for repurchasing the gold expired this month, and Citibank is now moving ahead to sell that gold. Okay. Speaking of gold, the U.S. Department of the Treasury is now imposing sanctions against Venezuela's state-run gold mining company, Minervan, which is part of the Venezuelan Guyana Corporation holding company. And this is just part of the ongoing sanctions. And what they're trying to do is make it so Venezuela cannot sell their gold to other countries to raise currency. And apparently over in Uganda, they're investigating their biggest gold refinery, supposedly for importing Venezuelan gold. So, again, the U.S. has weaponized the economy. They've weaponized the dollar. They're weaponizing sanctions and tariffs, and they're ripping the global economy apart. And you get to pay for it. You're already seeing the higher prices in the stores because American industry and agriculture weren't prepared to step in a protectionist environment. And so stores are still having to buy product from China and pass along that tariff to you, the customer. Amazing. Italy is getting ready to sign a trade deal with China. Next week, Chinese Premier Xi Jinping is going to be visiting Italy. And the recent announcement by five-star movement leader Luigi Di Maio that his country is prepared to sign a memorandum of understanding with China to be part of China's Road and Belt Initiative. And of course, this set off just this explosion of outrage from Donald Trump and Angela Merkel. And apparently, basically, Merkel and Trump were caught by surprise. They absolutely, apparently had no idea that Italy would consider becoming part of the Belt and Road. That Belt and Road is literally going to change the economic world. And the United States is very upset about that. All right, we've got a couple of callers on the line. This should take us to the end of the show. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
That's like, I always wanted to talk about that, the Belt and the Road. People don't realize China and that part of the world, that's half the world's population. Like you see what's going on with Kazakhstan now. It's all the same. The belt is actually the road, and the road is actually the waterway, which was an odd choice of naming, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, that goes into Europe, like Britain. They have a train going, so it's already happening, and there's nothing the U.S. can do about it now.
Unless they declare war on China and just blow them all up.
Yeah, but it's like, they can't make, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we can take Iran, not in terms of just occupying that, because it's not Iraq. It's a different nut to crack.
It isn't Iraq, and it's not like we did all that well in Iraq anyway. Dustin, stay on the line. I got to put you on hold. We got to do a commercial break. We'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective, and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. We're talking with Dustin in New Jersey. We've got one other call I'm going to try and get to before the end of the program. So, Dustin, just pick up where you left off.
Tomorrow, and continue this conversation. But you can take your last caller.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. That's very gracious of you. So let's switch over to Paul in Montana. Aloha, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Paul, are you there? Okay. Oh, there you are. There you are. I was about to put your face on a milk carton.
You can hear me. Anyway, concerning American whiskey exports, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. You're on the air.
Okay. Concerning American whiskey exports, any American product that's derived from American agriculture is totally looked down by the entire world, including Bangladesh. And whiskey, if you go online and look up American whiskeys, you'll see that there's a number of small, very, very old distillers that are coming out and saying that their booze is as organic as they can possibly get it. And if you take a stroll through your friendly neighborhood liquor store, I forget what vodka company it is, but they have a banner on their bottles of booze that says this is, as organic as we can get it and as GMO free as we can get it. Now, if that niche of the market is growing in the United States, and the big agro-industrial complex booze industry is shrinking, is there a message in there? Thank you very much.
All right. Well, you're welcome. And let's see. Interestingly enough, I think it's okay for those of you who indulge in the liquor to look at those labels and they're going to say non-GMO, because if you think about the process by which grains are turned into whiskey, none of the original grain gets into the bottle. So it almost doesn't matter if it's GMO or not, because all they're getting out of the grain is the alcohol, and the alcohol remains the alcohol, and it doesn't change its chemistry because of the GMO. So I wouldn't have a problem with that one at all. Okay, over in China, Huawei's rotating chairman Guo Ping is saying that the real reason for the U.S. attacks on Huawei is because the U.S. is afraid of being left behind in the race toward 5G. And yeah, that does seem to be a big part of it. And we've been seeing a lot of anti-5G propaganda propping up all over the net about how, oh, it's mind control, it's population control, it's going to give you cancer, it's this, it's that. And I remember when we first noticed, and I was saying, well, this is probably all the 4G companies who don't want to upgrade. And it may be for economic reasons they can't upgrade. We know that there is the intelligence dimension, where Huawei is not likely to go along with U.S. requests to backdoor their encryption for the benefit of the NSA, certainly not while The trade war continues. The friction over Taiwan continues, not to mention the tension in the South China Sea. Anyway, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. He's got lots of interesting things to share with you. And please donate to Republic Broadcasting. They really need it. Please donate to What Really Happened. We really need it. Please share what you learn with everybody that you know. Have a good evening. We'll be back tomorrow with the lovely Lady Claire. Aloha, America.
How healthy are your arteries? Deteriorating circulation has a number of early warning signs: high cholesterol, high blood pressure,